I'm Nikki and welcome to the Preppy Possum. Today I'm going to lead you step by step through a painting. All right, let's paint a rooster. So start out by grabbing like a number 6 brush and dry it off. And we're going to grab a little bit of black, so like a number 6 brush and some black. And we're going to hop down from the top of our canvas. This is like a 16 by 20 canvas. Hop down from the top at least 8 or 9 inches. And we're going to start with a little whoop, like you're going underneath an orange, like a little smiley. And then once you have that, we're going to skip up from the bottom, at least like 2.5, 3 inches. And we're going to throw a tiny little diagonal. So just like a 1/4 of an inch or so, just enough to leave room for our feet. And then once you have that, we're going to throw kind of like a skinny heart. So right here on the right-hand side. And then we're going to do the same kind of thing over here on the left-hand side. This one doesn't have to come up quite as high over here on the left. And then once you have your skinny little heart on there, then we'll go ahead and throw our little chest out because we're doing a rooster. So he's cocky. So we're going to throw our chest out right there. So bring it down from the left-hand side a couple inches and then just curve it back in like a little diagonal right back into your heart. And then we'll go ahead and carve out a little bit of room for our wig, our chicken mullet. So right up here at top, just throw you like a droopy little line, kind of like a U, right there, just to leave some room for our top part. And then I would grab a bunch of black and we're just gonna fill in all underneath that whoop. So just all underneath your U. Grab a bunch of black. And it doesn't matter like which way your brush strokes go because we're going to come back and feather a bunch. So just grab a ton. Fill in your whole body. Everybody seems to love roosters. So many people collect like roosters and chickens and put them in their kitchen. They're supposed to be good luck in your kitchen. So I think I've taught a rooster just about as much as anything else. People love them. And then once you have your whole body filled in, so all underneath your little whoop, all on the right-hand side, you have a good little layer. Then I would go ahead and just wipe off your extra. So wipe off your excess paint and chunk that one in the water. And let's grab a little bit smaller size brush, so say like a number 4. And some dark red, like a brick red, like a maroon kind of color. And we're going to skip up to the very top of our head, like the top center of our little heart. And we're going to start with a little whoop, like you're going around the right-hand side of a 1/4. And then once you get that little whoop, then we're just going to throw like little spikes off of there. So we're going to start with like a skinny little triangle that just comes up like an inch. And then once you have that little spike, then right there to the left of it, we're going to throw another little triangle, and you want this one to come up even a little bit higher. And make sure these go like straight up. People have a tendency to lean them. You want to kind of keep them straight up. And then once you have that one, we're going to throw another one that even comes up a little bit higher. So that's like your third one. It's even higher than the second one. And then right there to the left of that, we're going to throw like a shorter, chunkier one right there to the left of it. So you have your little spikes and make sure they're kind of going straight up for your little comb. And then skip over here, skip down just a little bit, and we'll throw a line that goes straight over to the left for just a little, like an inch, less than an inch. And then we're going to throw like a little whoop. So kind of like you're going around the left-hand side of a ping pong ball or something, and throw it right, then kind of throw a little line right back into the little spikes we made. And then we'll go ahead and fill in that whole section with some dark red, some brick red. So now we have the start of a comb. And then once you get that, we're going to skip right underneath the comb and throw you like a little whoop, kind of like the left-hand side of a rainbow. So a little whoop right underneath there. And then we'll just do a little whoop like a smiley again, like a U shape, and it's gonna come right into our body and then even go like inside a little bit. So it's just like a smiley. And don't worry if you pick up a little bit of black, because we'll come back and throw some light red, some bright red over it. So once you have that whoop, we'll skip back to the top. And we're gonna throw like a bumpy line that just leans up just a little. And then once you have that, we're gonna throw like two, well, kind of like a big whoop right underneath it. So like you're going around the bottom right-hand side of a golf ball or something. So just a little whoop. And then it should go right back into that other little whoop. And then we'll do the same thing that we did with the comb. You wanna grab a bunch of that dark and throw a layer of paint. So I'm gonna get all the part that's just on the canvas first, just since that black is still wet. And then I'll go over the black part too, because it's fine if it mixes in a little, because we'll come back and hit it again. All right, now we got that part, so we'll just wipe off our extra and chunk that one in the water. And now we'll grab a humongous brush. So the biggest brush you have, I'm not even sure what size this is, but it's big. So grab a huge brush and dry it off. And I'm gonna use like a royal kind of blue, bright blue. And I'm gonna paint through all of my edges and corners first. So you kind of wanna have that royal blue on a big brush, and we're gonna get all towards the edges and the corners. And just grab a bunch and go for it. Don't worry if it's a little streaky, because we can come back and thicken it up. And I would hit like all the corners, all towards your edges. You can even paint the very outside edges. That way you don't have to frame it. You can just pop it on the wall once you get done. But I think it looks good with this one to kind of have like the dark towards the sides, and then we'll get lighter as we come in towards the rooster. All right, so now we have a lot of that dark. So I might switch out to a different brush. So I have some through all the corners, the edges, with that like royal kind of blue. But you can do your background whatever color you want. So if you want it to match your kitchen, just do it, you know, whatever color will match. And then wipe that one off and chunk it in the water. And I would grab probably like a number 6 brush again. It's a good size. We'll grab like a turquoise blue. And now we're gonna get closer. So we're gonna, you can even kind of blend it where it touches that royal blue. So like a turquoise, and then just kind of blend it in to where it touches the royal. And I'm gonna do that all the way around first before I get right up next to the rooster. I'm gonna give my rooster just a second to dry. So I'm gonna do this all the way around him, but not get right up next to the black right away, because we want that to dry another second before we get right up next to it. But now we can get all the way up next to the rooster. So I would still use that turquoise. Just load your brush with a lot of paint and be real light with it. And don't worry if a little bit of black gets pulled in there, because we'll come back and feather out over it too. But you just want to get all the way up next to it. So don't worry if a little bit of black gets pulled in there. You just want to make sure you get all the way up next to it. You don't want any canvas showing in between. And now we'll even get up next to our comb. And then we're going to give this just a second to dry. That way we can feather into our background better. And we'll come back and thicken up these corners too. So just kind of wipe that one off and chunk it in the water. So now we'll grab like a number 6 brush again and grab some of that off-white with just a little bit of yellow. And we're going to go ahead and throw a layer in through the whole top, like our little rooster wig, chicken mullet up here. So grab a bunch of paint. It's just that off-white with a little bit of yellow. And you want to cover that original line at the top of that black that we threw on with that original heart shape. Go ahead and cover that up. But kind of start by getting all the white parts first, just in case your black is still a little dry, a little wet. So kind of get all the canvas first. And just like anything else, you want to have a lot of paint on your brush and just be really light. And then once you have all that, then we're going to keep those same colors on our brush and load it with a lot of paint. And you want to be real light with it, and we're just going to kind of feather in to the body. And we'll come back and feather again. You just kind of want to get the start of your feathers going. So just real light and loosey-goosey. And we're just going to kind of feather where it touches the black. All right, we got some hair going on, some feathers. So once you have that, then just kind of wipe off your extra, and let's grab some black. And we're going to hop over here to our tail. So grab some black, and then right up here we're going to do kind of like a rainbow. So you want to load your brush with a lot of paint and then just be really light with it. So you can even, if you want a big high tail, you can even throw it up even higher. And then to just kind of get rid of the look like it's just a little ponytail, you want to kind of fill in between here. So throw some little short ones, kind of just like the right hand side of a rainbow. And they can end at different lengths. So now we have a little bit, some tail feathers. And then all right here through that right hand side, so you can use this brush or even a little bit smaller, like a number 4 would be good too. All through that bottom right, we're just gonna be really light. You want these to barely hang off the body because you don't want them to look electrocuted. So just load your brush with a lot of paint and just be real light and loosey-goosey. And kind of throw your little feathers pointing down, and they just barely hang off that edge. And then once you have that, we have a good start to our black. So I would go ahead and wipe off your extra and chunk that one in the water. And let's grab like a number 4 and dry it off. And we'll grab some dark orange. So like just a regular orange kind of color is good. And we're gonna start from the top center of our body. So like where we started drawing our rooster. And we're gonna start from the same point and do little whoops like the right hand side of a rainbow. So load your brush with a lot of paint and then just be really light. And you wanna have them kind of start off small and then they're gonna get bigger as they come to the right. So keep loading your brush up with a lot of paint and don't worry if the black kind of gets mixed in or if you can still kind of like see it through there, because we'll come back and brighten these up. But you just want it kind of piecey, feathery. And I would throw even a few of them all the way out over here towards that right hand side. And then once you get a few orange ones, you can even brush like a few underneath your little wig. But once you have those, then just kind of wipe off your extra paint and we'll grab some bright red. And now right underneath, like skip down like an inch, inch and a half from the top center, and we're gonna do some little whoops, kind of like load your brush and just be real light, and we'll do like a little patch of feathers right there, just a couple inches down from the center. And then once you have a little patch there, all underneath our orange ones, kind of at a diagonal, we're gonna throw a few more. So load your brush and be real light. And just like we did with the orange ones, you want them to come all the way out to the edge of your body. You can even have a couple that like start a little bit higher in there. All right, we got the good base of some red feathers. We could even grab a little bit of white and red and go ahead and add a few lights to our comb. So kind of towards the right hand side of all of your little triangles, I would throw a little bit of like red and white together, because we'll come back and throw some more dark in there in a second. And then just a few streaks through the comb in the bottom part too. So like all right here through the bottom, I'll just kind of add some light streaks. And don't worry if it gets too light on you with this red and white, because we're gonna come back with dark. Just while we had it on our brush, we'll throw some up there. All right, we got some lights up there, looking good. Now just kind of wipe off your extra. I'm not huge on rinsing the brush, so just kind of wipe it off. And now we'll grab some like tan, so a sandy tan with even a little bit of off-white, and all through the left-hand side of our chest, so all underneath your little chicken wig. We're gonna throw some little whoops, so think like you're going underneath the dime. And we want them to be like, come in at least a few inches up here at the top. And then it doesn't have to come in quite as far as you go down. But you want to take them all the way down that left-hand side. So just load your brush with a lot of paint and then be really light with it. And you can see how I'm having them come in further at the top, and then as I work my way down, they're not coming in quite as far. But that's a good little start to our chest. And then we'll just kind of wipe that one off and grab some gray and black together. So same brush, just kind of wipe it off. You don't have to rinse it. And grab some gray and black. And now all through our body, just to kind of feather it up, we're gonna use the gray and black and be really light. So you just want these to barely show up. So if they're showing up a whole lot, just grab you a little bit more black. And we'll like let them dry for a second and make sure that ours aren't too crazy. But it's just the gray and black, and kind of do little whoops like you're going underneath the dime, all through the middle part of your body. So that you want these to just barely show up. And if they're getting too light on you, all you have to do is grab a little bit more black and just kind of whoop back in. That makes it look good, like better anyway. Makes it, give it that real feathery look. And that kind of feathered our body a bunch. Then we can kind of wipe it off a little bit, and I would grab maybe like a dark gray with a little bit of light gray, or even a teeny tiny bit of white with dark gray if you don't have light gray. So dark gray and light gray, and now all through that left-hand side where we feathered before, we're gonna throw a few of the gray feathers, those in that same area. So just skip around. You don't wanna do like quite as many with this color. So it's just like 2 grays together, like you're going underneath the dime, and do that all through the left-hand side. Now we've got them looking a little bit better. Got them feathered. So then I would just kind of wipe off my extra paint, and I would grab some off-white with a little bit of that sandy tan again, and we'll go ahead and start our feet. So the off-white and the tan, and skip down here to the bottom. And we're gonna start with kind of like, you know those bugle chips that you can put on your fingers? You want that kind of shape, but a little bit skinnier. So like right here at the bottom, you want it to start thicker. And I'm still using a size 4 brush, but you can switch out to a teeny tiny if that's easier. A lot of people, since you're doing little stuff, you might want to use a little brush. But kind of start out with it thicker, and then let it get skinny as it comes down. And then we're eventually gonna make this into like kind of giving the impression of 2 little claws. So don't worry, that kind of looks, they'll start out kind of looking like a tree root, but we'll make it into feet. So once you have that little bugle, then we're gonna add even skinnier versions of that for the claws. So right there off the bottom, throw like a really skinny one that goes straight over to the left. Then throw one, so it just comes out like a little bit over an inch. And then throw one that leans towards the bottom left. And then we'll throw one that leans down. It can still lean like a little to the left, but. And then right on the back right, so right across from that one we started with, we're gonna throw like the little claw, the little back spur. And these are not technical terms, so. And then once you have that, then we're just gonna skip up like 1/4 of an inch along that left-hand side of that bugle that we started with. And we're gonna throw one that goes straight out to the left, because this is gonna kind of be the one behind it. So you don't have to see the whole thing. So we'll throw one straight out to the left, and then we'll throw a little bit of one kind of leaning towards the bottom left. And then right across on the right-hand side from it, we're just gonna throw that little spur. It only comes out like 1/4 of an inch. And we can even grab a little tiny bit of yellow and mix some of that in. But then we're gonna give it a second to dry, because we're gonna come back and add some darks, and that's gonna define our feet. And don't worry if you have to play around with the feet, because that's definitely the hardest part for most people, is the feet. And they'll kind of, you know, start out funny, looking like a tree root. So we're still gonna use that same size brush. You don't have to rinse it out or anything. I just kind of wipe it off and grab maybe a little bit of that caramel brown. So it's like a really light brown. Just think like caramel, like the candy, that kind of color. And then all up here through the top, we're gonna start at the very top of our head, and we're just gonna feather a little bit of that caramel in there. So you wanna load your brush with a lot of paint and just be really light. And so we're gonna, and it's okay that the off-white's still kind of wet and blends in together, because we're gonna, you know, you want a bunch of feathers. And then we're gonna throw just a few through the rest of it. So load your brush, be real light and loosey-goosey. And we're gonna throw a few through the rest of it. And if you feel like they're too pronounced, you can just grab a little bit more of that off-white with like some yellow, and you can even brush just a few little streaks kind of back in there while it's wet. It's easier to blend. And you can still feather into the edge too, because now that your black's a little bit more dry, it'll be easier to feather. All right, we got our little chicken mullet looking a little bit better. So now we'll just kind of wipe that paint off. And you don't have to rinse it out, just kind of wipe it off. And we'll grab a little bit of really light blue. So think like a sky blue. And we're gonna throw just a few sprigs of that in through our tail. So I would like load your brush with a lot of sky blue and throw just a few sprigs. You can kind of throw a few little pieces coming up. And you can switch to a teeny tiny brush again if you need to. So if you want to use like a number 1, I'm using a number 4 because it's my favorite, but if you're better with tiny, switch to a number 1. But throw a few little pieces that come up, and then I would throw a few that come out. You just want to be real light and piecey with it. And then once we get a few light ones, then just kind of wipe off your extra. And I would grab more like a pool blue. So a little bit, still a light blue, but a little bit of that. And we're gonna throw a few with it. So just a few with like a pool blue kind of color. So it's still pretty light. And then once you have that, I'll wipe that off a little bit again and grab more of that turquoise. And we're gonna throw quite a few with the turquoise. So throw like a few little sprigs that come up. And then we're gonna have a bunch that come out, kind of like a right-hand side of a rainbow. And you want a few short ones, and then they get bigger. So you want them to kind of come up and out like a little arch. So load your brush, and then just keep throwing your little whoops. And then once you have a few turquoise in there, I would even grab a little bit of that royal blue that we used in the background. You don't have to wipe out. Grab a little bit of royal, and we'll throw just a few little feathers with that too. And then we can wipe out our brush a little and grab some black. And we're gonna throw just a few little feathers that come up. So load your brush with black, and you wanna be really light. So we'll keep that black on our brush, and we're just gonna keep throwing little feathers. So you want these to barely hang off, because you don't want him to look like he's electrocuted. So just let your black feathers like barely hang off the top. So we're starting like right here, all through the left-hand side of our tail, through the top part, and then they can you can just feather a few little feathers that point down through that right-hand side and the bottom of the tail. And that got our tail feathers a little feathered out. And then I would just wipe off your extra. And let's rinse that one out in the water. So use like this. And if you switched out the tiny to the tiny, I'd probably grab like a number 4 again, because we're gonna throw some more orange. So I would even grab a little bit of yellow with the dark orange just to make it a little lighter. And we're not gonna throw quite as many feathers through the orange part this time, but load your brush with a lot of paint and be really light. And you want these to go on a little bit lighter, because it looks good to kind of have the dark ones from before and then to have some light feathers too. So still start out with like a little rainbow, like a little whoop, and then as you get bigger, your whoops get a little bit bigger, so a little whoop whoop. And you can even throw some little pieces, kind of piecey. And then once you have brightened up your orange, we can do the same thing with the red. So I'll just kind of grab that bright red by itself. You could even grab a tiny bit of dark orange if you want to, but mainly that bright red. And we're just gonna throw just a few feathers, like right here where we threw them through the middle. So you don't wanna throw as many as we did at first, because it looks good to kind of still see some of those original ones. And then we're gonna do the same thing underneath it. So load your brush with a lot and be really light. And we're just gonna kind of feather underneath our orange ones. And make sure you have a few that kind of hang out over that right-hand edge. And then we'll just kind of wipe off our extra, and I would grab more of that dark red. So the brick red with even a little bit of bright, so mostly dark. And come up here to your comb, and we're just gonna kind of thicken up everywhere where we didn't put like a second layer of paint. So everywhere where you didn't have the lights, we're gonna come back and throw a little bit of dark. And do the same thing through the bottom part. So kind of thicken that up. I'm even gonna grab a little bright red to kind of mix in there with it. We'll see how that dries, see if we need to add any more lights or darks. Now, we'll just kind of wipe off our extra paint, chunk that one in the water, and we're gonna switch to a teeny tiny brush again. So grab like a number 1 and dry it off, and we'll start out by grabbing a little bit of black. And you wanna hop right here between your comb, like right here where the two meet, and start right from your little hair part there. And we're gonna throw a little whoop, like the left-hand side of a rainbow. And you want it to be a little bit skinnier towards the end and a little bit thicker towards your body. So kind of skinnier towards the end. And then once you get that on there, then we're gonna add a little black dot, like just skip in like an inch, and you're gonna add a little dot. It can even be a little oval shaped. Smaller than a Tic Tac though. And you can keep the black and add just a little where the red touches the head. But whenever you do this, you want to be like real light and piecey. Don't worry if you get too thick, we can come back and thin it down. So we'll skip down here to our little feet, our claws, and we're gonna skip in at least a 1/4 of an inch, and we're gonna throw a little line to kind of make it look like 2. So just right there, closer to that right-hand edge. So it's that black and dark gray together. And then underneath, like each one of those little pieces that we drew, like painted on there, you're gonna throw a little bit of dark gray and black. And you don't wanna make your claws any bigger. You wanna keep them pretty small. So do it right on top of your paint. All right. So we got a little dark, because we can always come back and streak with some caramel and stuff in there too. Then just kind of wipe off your extra and rinse that one out, because we're gonna use that tiny again. So we're still gonna use like a number 1 brush, just kind of wipe it off, rinse it out. And we'll grab some bright white. And then I think it looks good to add a few little white feathers right over here underneath our red ones. So you wanna load your brush and be real light, barely touch. And we're just gonna kind of feather right there underneath the red ones. So don't go over them a bunch. It looks good for them to be kind of light on there, and take it all the way to that right-hand edge. They can even hang out over the edge just a little bit. And then while you still have the white on the teeny tiny, I would come up to your eye and add a little bit of a glare towards the right-hand side of the eye. Just a little bit of a glare. Don't worry if you get too big with your glare, you can always come back. And then just wipe off your extra and grab a little bit of dark gray. So same size brush, teeny tiny, grab some dark gray, and we're gonna skip to our beak, and we're gonna throw a little glare through our beak. Kind of towards the top. While your black is wet, it makes it a little easier. All right, I think he's looking pretty good. We can let our hair dry for a second and come back to that, but let's spruce up our background just a little bit. So I'm gonna switch out to like a black candle brush, so like a size 8. And we're gonna grab some more of that royal blue, and we're just gonna kind of thicken up. You don't have to hit all the areas again, but just kind of thicken up all your corners. And you just want to make sure you don't have any white on there. Like there were a few places where like I rested my hands, so we want to make sure we get those covered. And if you don't like it really streaky, this will kind of help to come back in and thicken up all the corners. So now that we have all the corners, I would even throw just a tiny bit through your edges. So we got our royal pretty much thickened up. So now I'll grab the turquoise again, and we're just gonna kind of thicken up. You don't have to get right up next to your rooster because you don't want to like chop off any of your feathers that you worked hard on, but you can get pretty close. And you can switch out if you need a smaller, but get a little bit closer to your rooster, and then we're just gonna blend where the turquoise touches the royal blue. So you can see how I got a little bit closer. Just don't chop your feathers off. And then we can even like blend in where the turquoise and the royal blue touch. And I kind of like the shadow effect it gives. It makes like the rooster really pop out. And we'll do the same thing like around the whole rooster. So like down here at the bottom, just make sure you don't chop off your feathers. And we're just gonna kind of thicken up that paint. And then just kind of blend it in with your royal. Some people like more brush strokes. I kind of like the streaky look, so I'm not gonna like over blend. But if you wanna like have it more blended, just grab more paint. Like the more paint you have on there, you can blend it even better. And then I'm gonna do that over here through the left and even near my head too. So just same thing, grabbing another layer of the turquoise, getting pretty close to my rooster. And this will kind of cover up if you like got any of that black into the background. This is where you can come back and cover that up. And I like to, like where the turquoise touches the dark, I like to grab a little bit of both of those, and that helps you kind of blend them in. But like I said, when it's really wet, it's easy to kind of work and streak in together. And then we'll go ahead and get a little bit closer to our head. And you can swap out to a smaller brush to get in between your little comb pieces if you need to. Or if you need to trim them up, you can do that now too. And then just kind of blend where the turquoise touches the royal. I think we're getting it pretty good and blended though. Might throw a little bit more down here towards our feet. But he's looking pretty good. He rules the roost. All right, let's see. We got him pretty good and blended. I think if anything, we might get through a few more little pieces through his hair. So through the feathers at the very top. You could even grab a little bit of white with the off-white. And we're gonna just add a few little feathers anywhere where you need to through the top part. And if like you didn't add enough caramel before, you can come back and add that color too. I just pulled a little bit of blue in there, but that's okay. The more colors in a rooster, the better. I think he's looking pretty good. And then we're just gonna feather a little bit more into our body. You just wanna keep it real piecey right there. It looks good to have it piecey. And you can even throw, just kind of wipe it off and throw a little bit of like red and dark orange underneath the head part right there next to your top feathers to add a little bit of color through the top part of his chest. And then I would even grab just a tiny bit of black. So with like a number 1, I'm using a number 4, but you could use like a teeny tiny brush too. And right up here where we have the feathers, I would throw just a few little black pieces, little black feathers. It'll kind of help separate. They're just like a 1/4 of an inch long or something right there where the hair touches. And then you could come back if you needed to feather any more through your edges. You could get that too. Same thing with the tail feathers. If you needed to add any little pieces, I would, you know, make sure you have a few little pieces back here towards the back. But I think he's looking pretty good. So there we have our rooster. Thank you so much for tuning in today. Be sure to check us out. We're on Cox Street in Asheboro. And be sure to check out our website, www.thepreppypossum.com.